Don't worry, it's too early.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. I'm Dr. Kendra Albright. This is Issues and Trends in Knowledge Management, and we are very pleased today to have with us Dr. Maria Jakubik, who is going to give us a little bit of background on herself and talk to us about her concept of wisdom management as opposed to knowledge management. And with that, if you would, Dr. Jakubik, please go ahead and tell us a lot about yourself. We'd like to know more about you.
Thank you, Kendra, for inviting me. I really appreciate that. So, well, a little bit about my background. After my master's degree in data processing, a long time ago, I worked as a research fellow at a computer company in the field of application software development in Budapest, Hungary. I am Hungarian myself. And then it was around 10 years working. And we were very, very close relationships with the businesses and with organizations. So I earned my doctoral degree in business and in strategic planning in a long time ago, again, in 1984. And then right away, my family moved to Finland, where my husband got a researcher position. So we moved to Finland, and I live still in Finland. It's like more than 35 years by now. So in Finland, when we arrived, without speaking any Finnish or English, I started my 2-year full-time MBA studies in English. It was a very, very brave step from me. Yeah, all lecturers were native English speakers, and all assignments were in English and everything. So it was in the school, in the Helsinki School of Economics. And I had a part-time studies at Penn State University also as part of my MBA studies. So my English is really learned by studying, by reading, learning, and speaking, not in school.
Right. Very good.
Yeah. So to make it short, so after 10 years in Finland, I got employed as a university teacher. And by now I have 22 years of teaching experience in Finnish higher education. And if I remember correctly, then in year 2000, I proposed a course which was very new that time, and the title was Knowledge Management. So my interest in knowledge management started more than 20 years ago. And at the same time, I challenged myself, and I started to study and do my second PhD in the school of Swedish School of Economics in Helsinki. And actually, I was very much inspired by my thesis tutor or thesis inspector, Karl-Erik Sveibu. Sveibu is a guru actually in knowledge management and in intellectual capital. I received my PhD. It was part-time study. It took me a long, long time, but I received it finally in year 2011. My dissertation focused on knowledge management and learning theories, because my background was in education. So learning theories, social learning theories mainly. So my approach was the human approach to knowledge management. And it was quite new that time, compared with the IT approach. Yes, probably that's briefly about my background and how I started to learn about knowledge management.
Wow, that is really amazing. Yeah. It's interesting to me that library and information science went through a similar transition from what we called the systems perspective, the black box, to yes. the cognitive side of things. So yeah, that's really interesting. Well, also, I wanted to ask you more about how did you go from knowledge management to wisdom management? What was your thinking there, and how did you come up with that?
Well, how to say? So I started to teach knowledge management at the university, beside leadership courses, and also I had like a research course, teaching research also. And my students were master students, and they were middle managers from businesses from Finland and abroad as well. So I realized actually that my students struggled a lot working and making the right, the correct and right decisions in business. So my interest in wisdom management research started around 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. When I started to read more philosophical literature, educational literature, and I started to publish in several journals and conference papers related to knowledge workers. And one of my other papers was about comparing knowledge work and intelligent workers and intelligent work. And that's how I arrived to wisdom, basically, and to practical wisdom and higher education through my readings. And I don't know if I can mention a couple of sources or authors who influenced my journey.
Yes, please.
So important authors were, for me, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi from the University of Chicago, who developed the concept of flow. Probably you are familiar with that. And also Michael Polanyi, who talked about the tacit side of knowledge. Yeah. And Peter Drucker, of course, in business as guru. And I read a lot of Nonaka, Toyama Takeuchi's. Nonaka actually visited Finland several times. I met him personally. I talked with him and also with his wife, Toyama. And other authors like Max Boysot, for example, who talks also about the information space, the I space, where knowledge is created in this space. And of course, my tutor, Karl-Erik Sveibø. Mm-hmm. Yes, the British professor Stacy also influenced my journey, and Karl-Erik Weick from Ann Arbor University also. I really enjoyed reading his works and his papers. And then they were philosophers, so like Lukács, Russell, Durant, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, of course. I read all this. And also Seneca influenced my thinking about wisdom more and more. And living philosophers from UCL London, from UCL London, Maxwell, Nicholas Maxwell, for example, with whom we had a direct contact and discussion, and also Ronald Barnett in educational philosophy from UCL also. I read several books of Ronald Barnett and had also personal discussion with him. So these persons are really influenced my journey to go to data processing, to wisdom.
Yeah.
Yes.
So can you describe for the students what you see as wisdom management, or how did all of these authors influence you and lead you to wisdom management?
Well, after reading a lot about wisdom, practical wisdom, and also philosophy and psychology, this concept is related to many, many disciplines, actually. And because wisdom is a very debated concept, it has no general definition. many authors just describe the characteristics of wisdom. They describe attributes of wisdom, and basically no definition. Since since Socrates, we don't know what is wisdom actually, but we are talking about that a lot, and it's an important human virtue, wisdom, among other virtues as well. So I consider wisdom as a higher degree of knowledge, what makes people act upon knowledge wisely and thoughtfully. And with, I think action with insights and action doing the right things, it's wisdom basically. When you consider your values, your how to say, moral values, and your own emotions and everything, and you act based on that and use the knowledge, it's this is the wisdom, this is the wise action, what you can do. So hopefully you understand what I mean.
do. In fact, I'm reminded of, and you probably are familiar with Kohlberg's scale of moral development. You know, why do you stop for a red light at 3 o'clock in the morning when no one is coming? Do you wait for it to turn green, or do you go ahead and run the red light? You know, this is a typical example of our moral development, and what we do is right, or is it because we can make choices and make decisions, you know? And I have a perfect example. I put some wrong drops in my eye one time, and I had to go to the emergency room at 3 o'clock in the morning. And my mother was driving, and she stopped at the red light and was waiting for it. And I said, "Mom, you can go ahead and go. It's all right."
Yeah. So you need to consider what is right, what is the right thing to do, right, in the right moment.
That's right. That's right. That's very interesting. And that certainly has a big implication for knowledge management in terms of how do we, you know, your background in learning, social learning theory, I would think would also really be important here to help us understand, in addition to all the readings you've been doing. My goodness, you could go get a PhD in philosophy and a PhD in psychology. And
no, probably not.
No, but you're pulling all of these things together that really need to be done. I know that I read an article, a long time ago about from clinical psychology that was saying that up to 95% of our decisions are made outside of conscious awareness. And I find that just really intriguing. Is wow, that's really mind-blowing. And there's a woman at that was by a guy named Drew Weston, who's at he's a professor at Emory University. And then Jennifer Lerner, who is at Harvard, I think she said basically the same thing. She's in the business school. I don't know if you know her either. Anyway, it's really intriguing to think about all of these things and how they work together. The human mind is extremely complex. And the fact that you're talking, I think this is why I was so intrigued by your paper when we were in Potsdam last year for the ICKM meeting. And it was a real topic of conversation after you presented. You know, it's compelling. And I'm not clear on the intelligent workers. And the reason I'm not is because I have done work in the intelligence community, which is government intelligence, right? So how do you what's an intelligent worker? And I don't need a definition, just a description's fine, just to help us.
Well, I wrote this paper, and I asked, Peter Drucker questions. He has these several questions about what defines a knowledge worker. And then I created a big table about, comparing that's what a knowledge worker, according to Peter Drucker, and what is an intelligent worker. And intelligent worker and intelligent works is a little bit more than knowledge worker. And I argued in this paper that very bravely, I would say, that that we need to replace we need to replace the knowledge work and knowledge worker to intelligent work and intelligent workers, because we are in the mind economy. And when Peter Drucker in 50s developed this concept, it was totally new, and he, of course, he has a very good contribution to that. But he imagined the future, the knowledge economy. But now we have so many technology developments and so many and so how to say, advancement in different fields, that we need intelligence. We need to think more what is useful for us. And what are really, I go back to values and attitudes, and how to be an authentic person, how to act authentically, in this very complex and very interrelated, interconnected environment.
Mm-hmm.
When we have several problems and crises. As know, we have the war, of course, Russia and Ukraine, and we have other environmental crises almost every day. Mm-hmm. You can hear in news every day several problems in the environment. So we need intelligent people to make the decisions, and we need insight, knowledge, to be wise and to make a wise decision for the future.
Yeah. And the question that pops into my mind with that one is, those are not politicians. Those are people with an education.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yes.
That's a little political commentary.
Yes, education actually has a big role in this, I think. Yeah. And that's why my focus currently focuses on higher education. And as Russell, the philosopher, said, that if we have more knowledge, there is an increased need for wisdom, because we need to think about this overflow of information, overflow of knowledge, overflow of data. We need to think and how to think wisely, how to make wise decisions. Education has a big role to educate young people to think about the moral issues and ethical issues of their decisions. This is my focus at the moment.
That's very interesting. If there was a way to integrate that perspective into the political arena, it could have a pretty big impact, I would think. If you teach politicians to have that authenticity instead of, oh my gosh, for the lack of a better phrase, fake news, which I hate that phrase, but I think that, we focus on the wrong things, definitely. And this would make a difference. Yeah, that authentic person, the values, the morality. And it seems like we used to have that a long time, at least when I was a kid. It seemed like we had some of that. We've certainly made some improvements in social change, but not in other ways.
Yes. Yes. You are right, Kendra. And one more comment, actually. I just remember that with the information, with data, information, and knowledge, we do things right, But what it means to do the right things, it's wisdom. So doing things right or doing the right things, this is the big difference between knowledge and wisdom, I think. So you are right. Politicians probably also need to think about doing the right things.
Right. That's really interesting. I'm also reminded of, as a researcher, when you get your PhD, our process is, we take both quantitative and qualitative research methods in the US. And I know that, when we talk about quantitative research and we have hypotheses that we're testing or in an experimental design, we can only look at exactly what we're looking for, the answer to the binary. It's yes or no. It either does exist or it does not. That phenomenon
Yes.
is real or it is not, statistically speaking. And so we see this much of the world, you know. And qualitative is a broader view because it takes into account these other things, but it can't do the same thing. That together they're very much more thorough, I would guess. But I think
Yes, they complement each other.
they
Yes.
do, yeah. And I think that we go back and forth with this instead of integrating them. And that's what I'm seeing here too, is because if you're being your authentic self and you are basing your decisions on the things that you've talked about morals, attitudes, values,
Yes.
and you're making the right decisions, then you're doing the right things, then you're much more likely to have a holistic picture. And I wonder if that has, I know we're moving towards more mixed methods research. The question is, this is a completely philosophical question off the top, but the question is, can we do all of that? Can we mix methods in our own research and be really good at it? I had a professor in my PhD who said, if you're going to do quantitative research, you need to be really good at it. You can't do both quantitative and qualitative really, really well. And that's why we need multiple people on research projects, which I thought was a good point. So,
Well, yes, but more and more, you know, in qualitative research, they are methods developing. For example, the computational social sciences, they're really helpful for qualitative researchers. It's easier for us to do qualitative research and also combine it with quantitative analysis like network analysis or different keywords analysis or whatever, you know, the dictionary-based methods and so on. These are developing and they are helping the qualitative researchers to do and to combine these two different concepts. And they are very useful and easy to use.
Yeah. Oh, I'd be really interested in your, how do you use those in your own work? Have you been doing the computational social science work?
Yes, actually the article, you know, what we presented in the ICKM conference, this article was selected for the special edition. And for the special edition, I really added one section to this article, which is based on computational social sciences.
Okay.
And I analyzed the knowledge in the knowledge management literature, the keywords which are related to wisdom. So I collected 250 something keywords in the knowledge management literature and wisdom related keywords. And I analyzed those keywords. And also I made a network analysis, like how different authors from knowledge management use different expressions which are related to wisdom management. So this paper will be published hopefully soon, and it has a part of this computational social sciences. Yes.
That would be wonderful. I will keep my eye out for that. Which journal is that going to be in, or do you know yet?
I don't know yet when, but I just submitted the revised version of it.
Oh, good.
Adding this computational social sciences part.
Well, I will look forward to that. That's very important. I think not only for me, but I think for our students to understand a little bit about this and why it's important to triangulate, to blend these types of research methods so we get a better understanding. And our students in the KM program aren't required, at the master's level, aren't required to take a research class. But the one, so I'm just going to add here that for the students, that quantitative research is a statistical analysis using inferential statistics. It's not just counting numbers of things. That's a qualitative study. It's actually using like correlation or regression, those kinds of things. And with the qualitative, it's more based on things like interviews and focus groups and trying to understand why people behave the way they do. So the quantitative answers the questions, does this phenomenon exist, yes or no? It's binary. Whereas the qualitative tells us deep, rich, meaningful
And the context.
And the context, right. And so together they give us a much better picture of what's really going on with a particular phenomenon. So yeah, that's great.
And
I look forward to that.
Yeah, and the qualitative research done, you know, by interviews and so on, but you collect data through qualitative research, and this data could be analyzed quantitatively. Right. And then the qualitative researcher can find the meaning of that. That's right. Which is very, very, very useful.
And that's the computational social sciences using like and stuff. Yeah. That's great. That's really great. Excellent. Well, so one last philosophical question for you is, what does it mean if we are a wisdom society? What will that mean for us?
What would that mean? It could mean that we live in a better society, and we will appreciate each other's, and we will not hate each other's, and they will hopefully, it's of course it's an idealistic view, but hopefully there will be no wars and no discrimination between different people, you know, like hatred and race and so on. So it's an imagined world, but I think we need to we need to think about this kind of words, because if we don't do, then it will never arrive, will arrive. Yeah, if we don't do.
With our authentic selves and our morals and our values and our attitudes, it leads to sort of a deeper understanding of each other, which leads to less hatred. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what I think. And also it could help solving different crises and problems in the world. For example, the World Economic Forum last paper or report published in published in January this year, talks about different crises. They list 10 top crises, you know, what the world is facing, and mainly they list the environmental crises at the beginning as most important ones. Like I don't know if I can just mention a couple of these, like how to say, failure to mitigate climate change, failure of climate change adaptation. They talk about natural disasters and extreme weather events, like we had the earthquake in Turkey, for example. It's also, of course, important, and biodiversity loss of ecosystem. We have all these huge problems when people should work together and put together their knowledge and do the right things, act rightly, and solve these problems. So maybe it's too romantic or idealistic picture of the future, but I think in order to save humanity, we have to do that sooner or later, because they are signs, you know, showing to the wrong direction.
Right. My daughter's an environmental policy analyst, and she would agree 100% with what you're saying. I'm pretty sure she would say that. She's in the other room doing her work. Yeah, she works for the Environmental Defense Fund, and she is completely on board with all of the things that you've said. Yeah, it's very frustrating to watch people make the wrong decisions. Yeah, it is. So, well, that's really wonderful. Okay, what I would like to do now is have you just give us any last final thoughts about this, if you have anything you'd like to add, or if there's anything you'd like to tell the students or advice you might give them. So.
Well, I was thinking that what kind of advice could be given to students, and I think knowledge managers of the future and of course of the present as well, they have very difficult time and very difficult role. On the one hand, they are required to manage knowledge, which means they need to create new knowledge, bring new innovations, and they need to measure everything, measuring the advance in the organization, how it goes, how it contributes to the organizational success, and so on. And on the other hand, they need to be true to their own values, and then and principles, you know, what motivates them, and they need to support and care for people, not only for the organization advancement and profit, but they need to care about people, how people can have a good environment in the organization. And lately, I read an interesting paper of a psychologist, Monica Ardelt. Probably you heard about her. She wrote a paper together with another author about the WISE organization. And it was an interesting paper, you know, when from the psychology point of view, she tried to develop measures for WISE organizations compared with the non-so WISE organization.
Right.
And this is an interesting paper. And she talks about caring about people and well-being of employees in the organization and how to engage them. So future knowledge managers actually need to manage people, not knowledge, but people. And this is interesting point. What I would suggest to future knowledge managers or your students, maybe they are three things. One is related to the past. The second is related to the present, and the third is to the future. So the one thing is what related to the past, that we need to learn from the past. We need to be critical and we need to be skeptical towards the past knowledge or the knowledge what we have. We need to reassess that knowledge. Is it still valid? Is it true? Or can we just abandon this knowledge? Can we forget about this? So it's not only about accepting everything, but also forgetting things or rejecting past knowledge. And the second thing, okay, you want to say something?
No, you go on.
Okay.
I was just, the thing that was crossing my mind when you said that was change management, that could lead to change. That's a really important concept. Sorry, I just made that connection. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah. The second I would suggest to the students is being interested in current problems, being curious about the problems, and also asking questions. Why we do things like that? Can we do these things differently, or should we do it like that? Or you know, asking questions about the present practices is really important. Questioning everything. We need to question also about the knowledge. Is it true, or is it a fake knowledge, or everything, you know, like values also could be reassessed. That what was valuable in the past, maybe it's not valuable anymore. For example, the profit orientation of organization. Is it really so important nowadays than thinking about the people and the spiritual knowledge as well, you know, and the well-being of employees? Well, the third thing it's related to the future, actually, that I suggest or I recommend future knowledge managers to always think about the impact of their actions. Like, what is the impact of their decisions and actions on on humans, on people, and what are the impacts on the future generations, on the world, on the environment, the ecological, the ecosystem, and also I also suggest that they learn how to be more modest, how to think about that maybe what we own is enough. So because it could contribute to the sustainability of the world. Do we need 2 cars, or do we need 3 cars in a family, or do we need so many clothes, or do we need really? So we need to rethink all of these, and also organizations need to think about what is enough, you know. And what is enough is actually the phrase how Seneca defined wisdom. You know, Seneca, as a Stoic philosopher, defined that probably what is enough, we need to think about that in the future, that not exploiting the environment, not exploiting other people. Yeah. That's 3 things I was thinking to suggest.
Those are wonderful things to encourage our students to think about, and I completely agree. The example that comes to my mind about those are the millionaires, or rather the billionaires, who have agreed that they're going to give away most of their wealth in their lifetime, like Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos. And I don't know if Elon Musk is a member of that group, but there are a number of people that are in that group. I think Ted Turner was, but I don't know what his condition is right now. But nonetheless, I know that there's, I know Jeff Bezos's wife is doing it. She's giving away millions and millions of dollars. So, and I believe Bill Gates is too, and Jeff Bezos too. So,
but the question is, you know, that do they give this money and funding to the right things?
Right.
So what is right? What they support with this funding, and because it could be a good thing, of course, but I don't know, it could be also not so good.
That's right. And I know that Bill Gates has put money into a lot of healthcare and libraries and that sort of stuff, but I don't know exactly what the others have done with it. But that's a very good point. That's a really important point. So
because in you know, Kendra, in some countries, for example, I realized that they have funding, they have money, but they give it to the oligarch, they give it to their friends and so on. Is it a good way then to give up, you know, money? So so we need, you need to think about who is getting the money and how this person who is receiving it, like, for example, NGOs, will they use it for good purpose or not so good purpose?
Right. I did a lot of research in Africa when I was earlier in my career, my academic career. And it always astonished me that I would see the NGOs just throwing money away. And it's like in some of the African countries that I worked in, they're always happy to take NGOs in. And what you end up doing is they're not being efficient. They're all spending money to accomplish the same thing. And what they should be doing is working together to figure out where to best put their resources. But it's not, it's a business. This is a business. So it's a nonprofit. It's still a business.
Or the money goes to friends or family. Family got rich, they build new houses, and I don't know. So it's we need to think about. We need to also probably control and check, you know, where does money goes and how it will be used, for what purposes. For example, the UNESCO uses for children, you know, supporting, but how it's used at the end, we need to control that probably. If you give money to some good purpose, but how it's used in reality.
There's a man you might be interested in knowing more about, named Human Haddad. He works for the World Food Program, and he gave a keynote speech for a conference I was attending about, he was there, it was a technology conference, and he was talking about blockchain, but the context was that he was working with the world's largest refugee camp in Bangladesh. And he went there, and all the UN agencies were there providing their services.
Yeah.
And he went around talking to the women in the refugee camp, and he found out that people are very depressed. And he was worried about it. And so he tried to figure out why they were depressed. And it came to the conclusion, or he came to the conclusion, that it was because everything that they had was being handed out to them. They had no autonomy, no decision making over their own lives. Everybody, they got rice and beans from the World Food Program, when maybe what they wanted was something different. So he set up blockchain and let banks come on to the blockchain and offer that he didn't control the banks and the transactions between the banks and the people, but they would give them, the World Food Program would give money to the banks to issue these cards to a certain amount. And then the cards could go to the people, and they would take it to all the different, shops, if you will, around the refugee camp, and might get vegetables instead of beans,
Yes.
And so everybody started feeling better, because an informal economy started, where they went from one side of the camp to buy beans at less cost, bring them over here and sell them for a penny more, and they started making a profit, and then they'd have more of their own money, and people were getting happier. It was very interesting story. So I think that, these are kinds of things we need to think about.
Yes, because people know best what they need.
That's right.
So they could use those tickets or talons or whatever they could use for their own purposes. Maybe they don't eat meat. They need something else, or we don't know. But they can make their own decisions also. That's important also.
That's right. And I thought that would be a good example of how Human recognized this need that was not covered by a particular UN agency, but he recognized by talking to the people that they weren't very happy. And so he made a decision that was the right decision to do the right thing for these people. It was really good. It was management.
It's a good example. Maybe.
It's an interesting application of your theory.
So it means that even small steps could lead to a better world.
That's
right. You don't need very big things to do, but small steps helping each others, and like, for example, this case, like pushing the decision power to people.
That's right. That's right.
Small things, small steps can lead to a better world.
That's great. And that's a good piece of advice to leave with our students. So thank you, Maria, for your time.
Thank you, Kendra.
Wonderful conversation about wisdom management and what it means and how important it is. That was really good. I look forward to keeping up with you and reading more of your work. So thank you.
Thank you, Kendra. See you later. Bye-bye.